And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete live stream. I'm Ricky Hampton with my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Monday evening. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope everybody's staying cool here in Motown. It is burning up, Mike. It's been in the 90s the last 2 or 3 days, and people here don't know how to act. I know I don't, man. Hot and muggy. Uh, but nonetheless, we're going to push through it. Had a great weekend of basketball. We're going to get into that tonight. But first of all, I got to check in with you, brother, just to see how you doing, man.
All right, I'm doing all right. I had an incident earlier today that kind of flummoxed me, but I'm all right now. It was showtime.
I can barely hear you, Michael.
Oh, like I said, I had an incident earlier, maybe a couple hours ago, that had me flummoxed, but I'm ready for prime time right now. But yeah, of course, bummed out about what happened to the homie from Oshkosh. How he had that debilitating injury right in the beginning of Game 7, and he was on fire, 3 for 4 from the three-point line. Looked like he was going to try to bring it home for the Pacers, but all for naught. And, of course, you got to congratulate SGA for doing his thing, and also Oklahoma City for winning the championship. And I written on Facebook that it was an interesting day for Kevin Durant. Think about what he went through. He got traded to the well, I'm not making this seem like I'm apologizing for him or feeling sorry for him, because he's always ended up on a team they thought was going to win it all. So it's not like he's been sent to Siberia, but he's traded to the Rockets, and then he has to watch his old team, the one that he was the original star of, win the championship. And then he had to watch a player go out like he did in the 2019 finals. Remember that? He went down with an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was bittersweet for him to watch that, and then also watch the other side, his team, that they thought he would bring it home. Remember, 2012, they lost to Miami. And then 2016, they definitely should have been in the finals, but that's when they blew that 3-1 lead, and then he goes to Golden State, crosses those boxes for winning that championship, but then he leaves, after his debilitating injury of the Achilles, and then it's been a disaster ever since.
Yeah, man. And you're right. That OKC franchise came over from Seattle, where Kevin first got his start. And Mike, 3 years ago, they won 24 games. And now they are NBA champs. But man, this thing with the Achilles,
I know,
is I'm trying to get this video up now. Mike, I think it was 8 guys this year.
Right.
That had
we're in the playoffs with the number 0.
Right. That went down with Achilles tendon tears. And I wonder what is going on with that. I was on the show earlier tonight with my friend Paul Mokeski, friend of our show, and Paul and I do a show, and he was saying one thing, and he doesn't know if it would make any difference, but the low top shoes that the guys wear does not offer the support that guys had back in the day. And that, I mean, that is obvious. You could just look at the shoe.
Right.
You can look at a low cut and look at a high top.
Right. And during my playing days, so you would say that it started in the 70s, mid-70s, I started playing basketball. My first shoes were some orange Chuck Taylors.
Yeah.
And they were high tops. And we won the small fry championship in those. And actually, we were the Pistons, Humboldt Park Pistons. So, and I wore number 23. But it wasn't Michael Jordan back then. It was Calvin Murphy. So then when I get to junior high school, I'll start wearing the leather Nikes, and they were high tops.
They were high tops, right?
we didn't even think about anything of an Achilles injury back then. We thought about mess up your ankle because a lot of people would be wearing ankle weights trying to play ball, which I thought was stupid, but they would do that or they would wrap their ankles. But I always said, no, I'm not wearing low tops because your ankle move around too much. Now they're talking about Achilles. Nobody thought about Achilles injuries back in the 70s, or if you did get that, you were absolutely career ender back then. And then
that is true.
Right, but now with the advancement of them being able to save a career, but it's starting to happen too much. And then you get some that say, well, it's the style of play now. They run more plays than they did back in the day, so you're running the risk of that. But I always wonder, why would you even, especially playing 82 games, why would you even be wearing low tops? I never understood why people wear low tops in basketball, especially in the modern era. Because back in the 60s, that's what they were, low cut chucks back in the day. The Celtics, Havlicek, and all of them. But yeah, that was a thing for me that, if I'm ever playing basketball, and the last ones I really bought specifically for basketball was right around the time of the Air Jordan. Those Air Jordans, those are the last ones I really bought specifically for basketball. And
were the original Air Jordan, were they high top? They were
high tops. But they had low top versions, but the main ones were, because I had the red and black ones, and they had to modify them because Michael was getting fined at first. They were red and black, and then David Stern, or I guess he was the commissioner. Yeah, David Stern said it has to be more white. The shoe has to be white based, and then you can put the colors around that. So that's how it was. And then the Air Jordans were a little different. I also had those Converse back then. Back then they had Converse that had all the NBA teams. And people forget that back then they had 23 teams. Because that's another thing that when we get into all these discussions about, oh, well, this, and this. Yeah, it was 23 teams when Michael first came in the league. And by the time he finished, it was, they had added 7. So it became 30 by the time he ended. So that's why when people say, oh, well, this and this, they only had 8 teams with Bill Russell, so that doesn't count. I said, yeah, but you could say that when Michael first came in, it was 23. He wasn't winning, and then he won by the time they had 30. Was the league watered down?
Yeah, I mean, right. It is what it is. Let me see. I want to try to play the injury here. And Mike, you can just see the injury when it occurs.
Yeah. At first I was thinking, like, what is he doing? What kind of turnover was that? And then I saw him, him slamming the ground. It was like, oh, man, that's
it. Can you see, Mike?
Yeah. Can you blow it up?
Yep, I'm going to blow it up. You see it pop right there.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and you look there at. I mean, he just it didn't have anything to support it. It just exploded on him.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. I mean, it's just amazing how, something of that, and then Obi Toppin was actually blaming himself because he had the ball in the corner and thought about shooting, and he actually threw it back out to Halliburton, and that's when Halliburton made that drive. But, you can't blame yourself for that. You had no idea that was going to happen. I mean, if you had an idea that was going to happen, then you'd be maniacal, and you would have extra
and some people say, well, they shouldn't have played it. Dude, it's game 7 of the.
I know.
Of course, if you know he's going to tear his
right.
Achilles.
Well, this is the reason why is because they all blame Myers. Myers, and Myers wasn't the coach, but they blame Myers for Kevin Durant playing in the 2019 when he was going through the calf and all the other injuries. And then, of course, they said that's the gateway to the Achilles next. And then, of course, he wanted to get his third championship. It would have been, 3 in a row? He got his third championship and all that. And instead, he gets the injury, and then he's out of there. So that's the thing about it, is that now people are kind of skittish because of that. So we don't want to have Indiana have that, and we're worried about his future. But yeah, but you're on the precipice of getting your first ever, and he's your best chance right there. And the way
you never know when you're going to get back there. You remember, everybody always talk about Dan Marino. Dan Marino got the Super Bowl his first year.
Second year,
never got back. You get that opportunity.
Yeah,
you got to strike, and it's terrible that happened to them. I totally agree, Mike. We're trying to get our friend Matt Calvin is going to try to join us. He's been with us throughout the playoffs. Get his thoughts. I'm talking to you and sending him another link.
Right.
Something's going on with our link tonight. But we'll get that straightened out in a second.
Yeah, and the thing about it, though, if you look at it, Indiana won repeatedly in the ABA, and since they come in '76, they haven't won, and then they made it to the finals right at the new millennium, 2000.
Was that 2000 they win the finals?
Yeah. And 25 years later. So a whole quarter of a century it took to get there. So, yeah, you're right. You can't take it for granted. And then if the player himself wants to play, who are we? I mean, I know they said, well, the team should have overrode whatever he thought because they're looking out for his best interests. However, like we said, we may never have this opportunity again.
Never get back there. He wanted to play.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these guys on TV, you just wonder how they got on there. You're gonna make that comment. Well, they shouldn't have played him. He'd have got. Of course, if you know that. No, we don't have a Nostradamus out here trying to pick games. But Mike, it's so crazy because I was reading before we went on the air. The game last night was the most watched game, 621. But the series was the least watched series in, most watched game in 7 years. But the series was the least watched game series since 21. So how do you have, I guess, 7 games always?
Yeah, it was the whole storyline that, okay, here you got Halliburton, trying to come back and from his injury and win it all. What his heroics, what he did in game 1. Is SGA gonna do it? So I think they built it up pretty well because at first, everybody said, "Man, I don't want to watch this," and it's ridiculous how you don't want to watch something because of the markets. I mean. Right. Are they a good team or not? The guys won 68 games. I mean,
no, you said, are they a good team or not a good team?
Right, but a lot of people were sour towards SGA because they said that, man, he gets so many foul calls, it's ridiculous, and he's flopping and all that. So there was a lot of people throwing out a little hate that, man, nobody want to watch this guy. All he's gonna do is sit there and flail and get calls and. They made all kind of parodies, comedic parodies about he was by the basket all by himself and did like a head fake, and then all of a sudden the whistle blew and nobody was near him. And I said, "Oh man, they're really going after him as a faker and all that." So you had that, and then of course, some like, "Oh man, I'm not trying to watch." One of these Canadians being our face of the league or something like that. So you got some people that are trying to use nationalism as a way of saying, I don't really care about this. But they'll be okay with Joker. I don't get it. But anyway, I just think that the people that said, man, this is going to be a dud series, then all of a sudden it starts off game 1 with Halliburton. And then they got a chance to go up 3-1. And then SGA comes back to the rescue, and now it's 2-2. then I think they said, well, hey, this might be something. But then game 5, they took care of business. And then game 6, Indiana comes back with vengeance. So I think it started to look like, hey, you know what? I might not have really been paying attention to this series, but man, they're going back and forth. And now it's a game 7. So I'll watch a game 7, but I couldn't care less about the first 6 games. So I think that's what happened in this case, that people just didn't want to enjoy it. They thought it was going to be a blowout. OKC might beat them 4-0, a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. But when it turned out to be a 7-game series with a lot on the line in a really heroic situation as a possibility with Halliburton, I think that was captivating and must-see TV for a lot. And that's why the ratings were up for that particular game, but not the particular series.
Trying to get this to our friend Matt Calvin again. Try to get him on the air. Yeah, and I was happy for OKC. I would have been happy for. I didn't really have a dog in the fight too, and I wonder if there were other people who were like me. I was like, it's cool either way. OKC's a good young team. Some good young players there. Indy, I would like to see that ABA team
right
get one. Just going back for all the respect from that ABA team days where they were one of the premier
right exactly
franchises back then. So, but I thought the games were well played and all that, man. But now with this injury, the East is wide open. I think the West is still very, very competitive. Of course, OKC is going to be the defending champ, but it's a lot of good teams in the West. So the NBA, and Mike, this is the 7th straight year.
Right.
So the NBA has never been more competitive than what it is now.
Well, and that's the thing why, when people always want to throw out, well, they have the framework to have a dynasty. It's like, you guys can just stop with the, whenever somebody wins, they're applying for a dynasty, because a dynasty is not an easy thing. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's not an easy thing. And it's, if you really think about it, they've gotten to the point where anybody wins more than one, they try to call it a dynasty. Even with the Warriors, how it's like, they have 3, they're a dynasty. And I'm like, they have 3. I said, a real dynasty is when Boston won like 8 in a row. Then you guys said, well, that wasn't good basketball. Then you got the 3-peat with the Bulls twice, and then the Lakers had the 3-peat. Nobody else has had a 3-peat since then. And the last back-to-back was the Warriors when they added KD. And even that one, both of those were like in question. I mean, if Houston doesn't have their own injury where Chris Paul pulls a hammy or whatever, and they wouldn't have won that one. And then, of course, Kawhi getting taken out right away kind of made the path a little easier for them. So even though they won 4 in about 7 or 8 years, I mean, it's still, for me, it didn't really look that dynastic. I just thought that they had a good run for that time period, but I don't think that you can call everybody a dynasty. I mean, I really don't, especially what's the criteria? I mean, they don't want to give San Antonio a dynasty, but they won 5 championships. But it was from 99 to all the way to 14. So that's over 15 years, they got 5. That's not a dynasty. They never won back-to-back. It's not easy winning back-to-back. As we've seen the last 7 years, nobody's won back-to-back. So OKC can't assume that they're going to be winning back-to-back because there's a lot of things can happen. Now, if you have fortuitous situations where star players are down and your team is relatively healthy, then it could actually happen, because Boston is going to be absolutely debilitated. Milwaukee is debilitated. Cleveland, maybe not injuries, but they got to be injured and fragile in the psychological
Well,
standpoint.
they actually had injuries.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They had injuries during the thing, but I'm just saying they didn't have anything that was like going to knock them out the whole next year. So Boston
Right.
not going to have Tatum next year, and Dame Lillard's not going to be in Milwaukee next year, because of the injury. So it's going to be a situation where they're going to have to and then, the whole thing with Giannis. I mean, he seems to intimate that he's going to, he wants to stay there, but is this going to rear its head again about, hey, he wants to get out of there, especially if he sees Kevin Durant being able to go wherever he wants to. I mean, even the Brooklyn owner that was being a jerk to Kyrie, he said, yeah, all right, Katie, we'll send you somewhere you want to go. Oh, you want to go to Phoenix and play with Devin Booker? Sure, go ahead. We don't need much back. Think about it. What has Brooklyn done since then? I mean, you gave away a prime player like that, but then you tell Kyrie, hey, we're not letting you go to the Lakers. Forget that, buddy. We're going to send you to Dallas. And then that first year was a disaster for he and Luka. Then the next year, in the finals. So, I mean, that's the thing about it is that, people think that, okay, Houston, because they were a 2 seed, Kevin Durant's going to make them a 1 seed. But there's a lot of nuances to that because
it really is, Mike.
Right.
It really is. It doesn't guarantee anything.
Right.
I mean, you look at when he and you just said it when he went to Phoenix. Wow, look at the firepower, Bill and Booker and Durant. That's so much money you couldn't bring anybody else in.
Right.
When you try to put these super teams together, you're sacrificing a lot of core pieces that you need to win.
And the thing about it is that when they do try to throw everything, is when you have 3 players that are really good as a super team. It's like, I mean, what is the real criteria of a super team? I mean, it's amazing how some players get elevated to a whole different echelon because they were on a team that was considered a super team. Because I'm amazed how easily and quickly, Bosh just was elevated into a Hall of Famer. I mean, he had a pretty good run up in Toronto, but they were 500 before he left. And then Wade, after that 06 year, and then Shaq left, they were below the I don't want to say below the 500, but they were like not really that relevant. They won 47 games. Ron won 61 in Cleveland, comes down to Miami, and they say he's joining a super team. I'm like, how is he joining a super team when that team is worse than the one he left? So that's what I'm saying. It's like, what's your definition? What's the real definition of a super team? Now, KD going to a 73-win team that actually won a championship recently, a year removed, that's a little different. That's
that was really reloading.
The best record ever.
And another thing, Mike, they see this guy. Well, he averaged 20 points a game.
Right.
Yeah, but you playing for the Washington Wizards.
Right.
Somebody's going to average 20 points a game, no matter how bad the team is. That doesn't necessarily mean you are a good player. And you could be a good player on a bad team. But it is far more than just what he averaged or whatever. Well, he averaged 10 rebounds because he's playing 35 minutes.
You're right.
So he's getting 1 rebound every 3 minutes or so. I mean, that's not necessarily the case. But if we talk about that, we've had some big trades. Durant is on the move once again. This time he's headed to Houston. And Houston gets Jalen Green. They get the 10th pick in the draft. They get Dylan Brooks, good defender, tough physical player. Your thoughts on that trade, Michael?
Well, like I said, I don't know when we got to this point, but for some reason, there's always seemed to be favors and not that much criticism for KD. And I like KD, but I'm saying that it's amazing how he could go places and they'd be adjunct failures, but it's never his fault. And then when they had the 3-1 lead on the Warriors, it wasn't his fault. And then here's another little tidbit for you. All three of those guys that you would call the big three in OKC, even though Harden was on the bench, all three of those guys won MVPs after that run, and subsequently was traded to the Rockets. All three of those players were traded to the Rockets at some point in their career. So that's another one of those, did you know? So the thing about it is that, like I said, KD, he goes to Golden State. He gets a little bit of criticism, but not as much as the nonsense LeBron went through in Miami. And he went there as a free agent also. But then he, after he leaves Golden State, somewhat unceremoniously, he goes to Brooklyn to try to team up with Kyrie. And then all that was supposed to go with that. And then, of course, if his foot wasn't an inch longer, he would have beat the Bucks, and they probably were going to win the championship. We got to hear that all the time. Then, after that fizzles out, and also James Harden was on that team too. Don't forget that. People forget that. Well, he only had Kyrie. No, he had Kyrie and James Harden. So that one didn't work out. Then it's like, I need to get out of here, especially after they shipped off Kyrie. And he goes out to Phoenix. And once again, they got Devin Booker. And then you get our guy from Washington, another big three. Nothing happens. So, you include what KD has gone through, and then you also got to look at the Clippers and this whole experiment with Kawhi. That's been a disaster too. So that's the thing about it. And then Paul George.
The Clippers have Kawhi and Paul George. And,
Paul George.
Yeah, that's a lot of money and two guys right there.
That's what I'm saying. So, and James Harden's over there now. So that's the thing about it is that it's not an exact science. And, I know successful people hate to use the word luck because they want to make it that they did it all themselves. And, no, I'm a genius and I did it myself. And, luck is for the people that prepare for it. No, it's not. Luck is sometimes you just were in the right place at the right time. And if you are wise, you took advantage of it. You get some people that will have all the breaks in the world, but they find some way to just mess it up. Or they are not ready for it. Or when it really comes down to it, I got this opportunity, but I'm just not ready for it. So that's the thing about it is that you need to be really honest about it. If you got a break because this player just happened to get hurt, and then I come in, and then, oh my goodness, I actually blew the game, but the referees came up with some rule out of their rear ends, and I get the second chance. Now, who am I talking about? That would be Tom Brady. So he goes from that moment, which could have been a disaster for him, maybe put him back on the bench, and we may have never really heard from him. Instead, because of that crazy scenario where you can say luck or you can just say, I don't know, favoritism, whatever. And now he becomes a lot of people's GOAT. That right there was a life-changing moment when they made that call because so many different things could have happened and we would have never seen that. So same thing with basketball is that, you get a situation where, think about this. Like I said, Indiana, if they go up 3-1, maybe OKC says, you know what? We're going to have a second year of being disappointed. Instead, Indiana did not secure that home court at that moment. Then they get blown out game 5, and it looks like they're in over their heads. Come back game 6 and win it, but then disaster happens in Game 7. So that's what I'm saying is that sometimes you look back and say, man, if we'd have taken care of business in Game 4, maybe Halliburton could have survived this without having this injury. Same thing with the Cavs. The Cavs played in 15 against the Warriors. LeBron hits the game winner in regulation, no overtime. Instead, they go to overtime. Kyrie gets his kneecap cracked. So it's amazing how a moment or a second can change everything if it goes a different way.
Yeah, I just communicated with Max. He's having some technical issues, so he won't be able to join us. We'll get him on, Mike, because he's gonna have a lot to say about this series and some of the trades. and man, we got the draft coming up Wednesday, and Mike, and I used to know all the players coming in the draft.
Yep.
I don't know none of these dudes now. Of course, I know Cooper Flagg.
Right.
I know Harper, who's the son of Ron Harper.
Right.
But so many of these dudes, I don't even know, man.
Right. And that's the thing about it is that if you really look at it, I think maybe the 90s it started to get that way. You start saying, wait a minute, I don't know these guys like I used to. And
right.
Got to the new millennium, it was like, I mean, come on. And I cover basketball, so I'll know guys that I come in contact with, but like Cooper Flagg is in our conference. So but of course, you didn't even have to have him in the conference. Everybody knew who he was because he's playing.
That's right, because Stanford's in the ACC.
Right, but because these conferences now are so big, you will have a lopsided schedule. So Duke didn't come out here, but they went over there. So now, of course, when Duke comes out here, no Cooper Flagg. So sometimes I'll miss players because of just the lopsided schedule, and that's what you're going to have when you have these conferences that are 16, 18, pretty soon 20 people in a conference. So it's a thing that changed. The one and done kind of messed it up because it's hard to keep track of players. And if you're still there as a senior, you're probably at a mid-major or something like that. So, of course, you're not going to know who these guys are. But, yeah, I would say the last time I was really cognizant of all the players, that would come out in the draft, probably I would say maybe mid-90s, mid to late 90s. After that, it's like I have no idea. And even before I was, doing this professionally, I was just always on it. Like, I would know that like in
right, and think about that. And we didn't have all the internet and
that's what I'm saying.
We didn't have Google and
like 81, Mark Aguirre, Isaiah, Terry Cummings, all those guys,
you knew these guys.
Yeah.
But one of the things that draft these guys so young.
Right.
I'm looking at this mock draft from CBS by Adam Finkelstein. He's got Flagg, freshman, going first. Dallin Harper going second to San Antonio, freshman. Trey Johnson going to the Sixers. He's a freshman. Yep. Edgecombe, freshman. Newport, freshman. Ace Bailey, freshman. Jeremiah Fields, freshman. Malak, the big 7-footer from Duke, freshman. Their top 10 picks are fresh. Well, the 10th pick is a sophomore. So that explains it there. You hadn't seen these dudes play because they hadn't been around long enough. And we know Flagg is going to see a lot of minutes.
Right.
And Harper will probably see. But after those guys, how are these guys going to even play next year?
Well, you know what, though? It's a couple things here. Remember, the last draft that had 3 rounds. Remember, those rounds used to be a lot more rounds back in the day. But then it was the 3 rounds.
And Anthony Mason went 3rd round.
The 88 draft. Then it went to 2 rounds with Never Nervous and all those guys. But here's the thing what happened with Never Nervous. Never Nervous had one of the best freshman years ever. Matter of fact, they upset Duke, Louisville, and Milt Wagner, who's he's a grandfather in the NBA because his grandson, I think, is a pretty good college player and maybe headed to the NBA. And then his other son, of course, was in the NBA, got drafted by Cleveland, played with LeBron for a minute. So the Wagner family, that all started in that 86 final when they upset Duke with Johnny Dawkins. So then for us over at Stanford, we had this Frenchman named Maxime Renaud. Now, he was one of the best players in the ACC.
I remember him.
Right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Cooper Flagg was the beacon. So he may get drafted, and it'll be interesting to see if he does. So that's the thing about it is that, with Cal and Stanford out here, now that I cover them, I kind of keep an eye on it. Just like when I was back in Milwaukee, it was the Marquette players or the Wisconsin.
But you know what? Taking all these young players as they do, a lot of them not going to work out, and you're going to get guys like Dort that was not drafted or might have been a second rounder. These late round older guys are going to come in there and beat some of these guys out on some of these better teams. The bad teams will probably keep some of these young guys around and see if maybe they develop. And so there are opportunities if you don't get drafted.
Right. But you also got to look at injuries. Like I said, we got our guy that was the defensive stopper last night. His rookie year, injured, missed the whole year. And then he comes back, and he and other players that Blake and all those guys that were rookies and had injuries and missed the whole year, and they got to come back. Like in baseball, if you don't have enough games, you're still considered a rookie. Right. But remember, he got a rookie of the year actually in his second year.
Right.
So those are other things you got to worry about too. Is your rookie year, are you going to be able to handle the rigors of 82 games when you're used to playing 30 games and all that?
And Holmgren, man, right. I give it to him. He will fight. He's out there trying to fight.
Right.
But man, he got to get in the weight room.
Right. But remember when they were both high school studs, it was he and Blake. I mean, Bonnie. What's the last name again?
The kid from here.
Yeah. What's the last
name? Can't even remember his name. He's with Cleveland now. See how things change.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is that
Imani Bates? You said
Imani Bates. Yes, I know it's big. Okay. So and it's similar to back in high school when Jabari was the number one player in the nation, and then he started getting injured his senior year, and then Wiggins ended up surpassing him. And then Wiggins, of course, ended up being the number one pick, and then Jabari was second, and then Jabari blows out his knee rookie year and was never the same.
Yeah.
So what Giannis is doing is what they were expecting from Jabari. Jabari was legendary in high school, 4 straight state titles at Simeon, the same school to produce Derrick Rose. And then, of course, for a lot of people not from that area, Benji was the first one to win the state title for Simeon. And, of course, unfortunately, he was killed right before his senior year or senior's year's first game. And actually, Nick Anderson transferred over there, and people in Chicago and Illinois like, oh, man, they're going to have a dynasty over there. They're going to win back-to-back because not only they just win the state championship, but now they added Nick Anderson. So that lets you know that some of the best situations, looks like it's going to be prosperous.
Exactly. You are exactly right. That's why that all season we talked a lot of NBA tonight with the championship being decided last night, the draft tonight, NBA free agency starts. It may start either later this week or next week. So it's going to be a lot of movement. And I actually think everybody's looking to see what's going to happen in Milwaukee with Giannis. And And Mike, I didn't realize he had been there as long as he's been there. I think he's 32 years old now.
Well, see, and then the funny thing about it is that that's what I was saying about Jabari came in as a high-profile pick, number 2 overall, and then Giannis kind of came in. It was like a project, and Jason Kidd was the coach around that time. People forget that Jason Kidd coached in Milwaukee, and he was telling Giannis, because like I said, Jabari got hurt right away, so he's telling Giannis that I'm gonna make you a point forward. And that's what happened. So then Giannis started bringing the ball up, and he still was like had to work on this and work on that. And he still has some elements that he needs to work on. And ball handling is one of them. But why are we even having you bring the ball up? Get down low and destroy these guys. Use your height, use your athleticism, and all that. So then he started to progress, and then all of a sudden now he became his top player. But he was absolutely exposed in 19. When the Bucks are supposed to win that championship in 19, and then they got up against Toronto. And Toronto, of course, that came out of nowhere because Kawhi was hurt most of the year, and then he ended up getting traded there. And then they went up against Toronto. They were up 2-0, up game 3, up big. All of a sudden, they put up a wall for Giannis, and it showed how limited his game really is. And then they end up winning that game in overtime. And then the rest was history. Then they just wiped Milwaukee out. And a lot of people were saying, Giannis, you got to work on your game, buddy. There's no way they should have shut you guys down like that. And then the next year was in the bubble. And then Milwaukee was somewhat distracted because of the shooting in Kenosha. Remember all that incident where the brother got shot in the back? Yeah. So Milwaukee down in Orlando or wherever they were in Florida said that, well, maybe some of the players were saying, maybe we shouldn't be playing because this happened in our backyard in Kenosha. So they were kind of distracted from that. So they got taken out. And then when the Lakers won it all, it was like, nobody cared. You guys, this is bubble gum. And then, of course, they didn't get any parade. And then the next year, Milwaukee comes back because each year they were expected to win. Then they come back this time, play Phoenix, get down 2-0 right away. And it's like, here we go again. And then Giannis just went crazy. And Drew Holiday absolutely helped them, and they end up winning. But ever since then, or years outside of that year, they've been pretty much a disappointment. So that's the thing that I'm looking at is that, Giannis needs help or he should go somewhere else. He deserves to go somewhere else. I'm like, why not make sure you keep this going here? Why can't you have a dynasty in Milwaukee? Then once again, you can't have that cheap budget type thing. Like you let players go that were integral for you winning that championship. And then, of course, letting Drew go really made you guys look bad, especially when he wins in Boston. So
yeah, that was
right.
That was huge there.
And Dame comes there and does nothing. I know he's
here. Who are all the zeros that tore their ACL? Dame, Halliburton,
and Jason.
Jason
Tatum.
And there's one other guy, I believe, that wore 0.
No, it's just those 3.
It was those 3. That was it.
But
it was 8 overall all season.
Right. Yeah. It was one that was another player got hurt. I think maybe in the playoffs.
I tell you, man, and we got to get out of here. But if I'm running an NBA team, I'm calling my trainers into the office. Hey, let's study this over the summer and see if there's an injury is an injury, Mike. You know that. But if there's anything we can do, let's look at that.
Right, and
that might have cost Indiana an NBA title last year.
Oh yeah, and you hate it for it to come down to that because I'm sure that's what Golden State is saying, that we would have had one because not only did KD go out, so did Clay.
Yeah,
Clay went out too. So
the Clay was his ACL or it was Achilles?
It was something. It was either MCL or ACL. I'm not sure which one it was, but remember, he had a while before he came back, and they had to deal with that. And that's when people started, his value started to go down. He said, well, should Clay get the big contract? And then eventually he ended up saying, you know what, you guys are not going to pay me what I think I'm worth. And then that's when he went to Dallas. And the funny thing about it is that he also complained about not being a top 75 player. And I'm like, come on. We got to stop this. I mean, I know you got a confidence in yourself, but stop it. We already had issues with the top 50 where I don't think some of these people should have been on there. But once again, I'm still not sure what the criteria was, because it looks like they try to take, maybe 10 people from each decade. Because some of those people on there, I'm like, come on, man. And then don't have Bob McAdoo and Dominique and all those guys on there. So
I think it was Clay's knee.
Yeah.
When he was at Golden State.
Yeah, it was like I said, I think it was ACL or MCL.
Yeah,
I'm not sure which one.
the ACL and the Achilles, these prime time athletes, that is their Achilles, is those two injuries. Hey, but we've gone over time. I got to get out of here. We'll try to get Matt Calvin on to visit with us real soon. I hope everybody enjoys the draft. Mike, thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks everybody for tuning in. For my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson and Rick Hampton. See you next time. Peace out, everybody.